When you think of samurai, you probably picture noble warriors in gleaming armor, living by an ancient code of honor and justice. Hollywood has done a fantastic job polishing their image until they practically sparkle. However, history tells a different, much darker story. Buckle up because we're about to turn your idealized image of the samurai upside down with 10 horrifying facts that will have you side-eyeing every katana collector you know. Number 10. Swords were tested by slicing people in half. Imagine buying a new car and testing it by driving through a wall of criminals. Well, that's basically how samurai tested swords. The practice was called tame shigiri, literally meaning test cutting. Typically, they'd try out their fresh steel on straw mats. However, when a wealthy samurai wanted top-tier assurance, the test was done on actual humans, namely condemned criminals. Depending on the crime and the samurai's whims, the swordsmith might demonstrate the blade's quality by severing an arm, a leg, or even slicing the poor soul clean in half. If the blade could glide through a screaming, writhing person effortlessly, that was considered a top-notch endorsement. 5 stars. But surely, samurai wouldn't hurt innocents, right? Right. Number 9. Samurai murdered people at random for fun. No, they weren't exactly paragons of mercy. During Japan's Sengoku period, samurai practiced a charming little tradition called sujigiri, or crossroads killing. After buying a new weapon or mastering a fancy gut-spilling technique, they'd head out into the night to try it on the first unfortunate soul they encountered. Technically, this was illegal. Practically, it was impossible to prosecute because the victim was usually dead, and so was any potential witness. If by some miracle a samurai was caught, they often claimed they were exercising their sacred right to. Number 8. Murder anyone who insulted them. Enter the delightful concept of kiri-suit gomen, basically the right to instantaneously murder anyone of lower status who so much as looked at a samurai funny. There were only 2 conditions. The execution had to happen immediately after the perceived insult, and there needed to be a witness. Now about that witness, it could conveniently be the samurai's own servant. So essentially, a samurai could stroll into a tea shop, feel disrespected because his tea was too hot, and legally behead the server with his man-sized sword, all while his manservant nodded approvingly. Talk about customer service with consequences. Number 7. Common women had to pay to marry them. If you have to pay for the privilege of marrying someone, maybe reconsider. Back in samurai days, if a woman from a lower class wanted to marry into the samurai elite, she had to cough up a hefty payment. And by marry, we mean become a glorified servant. A samurai wife's job description was simple. Obey every command, be sexually available 24/7, and maintain the dignity of her husband, even as he frolicked with mistresses. It's like a subscription service you pay for where you also lose your freedom. Ah, love. Number 6. Wives were expected to kill themselves if their husband messed up. Being a samurai's wife wasn't just about pouring tea and smiling politely. It also came with a suicide clause. When a samurai botched something badly enough, he'd restore his honor by committing seppuku, ritual suicide involving slicing open his own belly before a trusted friend chopped his head off. But wait, it gets better. His wife was expected to commit jigai. She would slice her own neck open and tie her legs together beforehand to ensure she looked dignified in death. Because nothing says dignity like dying because of someone else's screw-up. Number 5. Bushido was revived to encourage mass suicide during World War II. Bushido, the so-called way of the warrior, is often romanticized as a strict moral code stressing honor, loyalty, and courage. In reality, it was more like a loose suggestion guide that samurai followed when it suited them. Fast forward to World War II. The Japanese government decided to revive Bushido, cranked it up to 11, and used it to persuade young soldiers that dying spectacularly was the height of national pride. So next time you hear someone wax poetic about the honorable ways of the samurai, remember, that legacy inspired thousands to believe blowing themselves up was noble. Number 4, they used to shoot dogs with arrows for sport. If you thought the samurai's worst crime was wielding a sharp object irresponsibly, wait until you hear about inumono. Samurai trained in archery by chasing down dogs on horseback and shooting at them for practice. Sometimes they used padded arrows to avoid killing the animals, not out of compassion, but because replacing dogs was more expensive than just using non-lethal ammo. Congratulations, samurai. You were pioneers in cruelty-free animal harassment. Number 3, teenage boys were their lovers, and it was training. Training to become a samurai wasn't all sword drills and honor codes. In many cases, it involved entering into a brotherhood contract, a euphemistic term meaning an older samurai could take a young boy as both apprentice and lover until he reached adulthood. The boy's consent was technically required, but given the power dynamics, it's hard to imagine too many apprentices confidently saying no. It's one of those historical facts that's so uncomfortable, you might need a bleach bath just thinking about it. Number 2, Ronin refused to reintegrate into society because they thought they were too cool for work. Losing your master as a samurai turned you into a Ronin, basically a sword-swinging drifter with no job prospects and a massive superiority complex. Even though society considered Ronin just a notch above beggars, many refused to take regular jobs like farming or craftsmanship because it was considered beneath them. Instead, they drifted around as mercenaries, bodyguards, and all-purpose troublemakers. Imagine if all today's fired CEOs decided they were too good for normal work and became full-time street brawlers. That's pretty much the vibe. Number 1, the Kabuki-mono, masterless samurai turned fabulous street thugs. If Ronin were societal dropouts, then Kabuki-mono were the dropout clowns of feudal Japan. These flamboyant, often masterless samurai would dress in absurdly bright clothes, don ridiculous haircuts, and sometimes even cross-dress, all while strutting around like they owned the place. And no, they weren't just harmless weirdos. Kabuki-mono loved picking fights, dining and dashing, and even murdering civilians for sport. Imagine a gang of heavily armed, brightly dressed weirdos engaging in a coordinated street brawl that looked like a deleted Power Rangers episode, only with more blood and less morphin time. And there you have it. If you enjoyed getting your mind blown by the real samurai, make sure to hit that like and smash that subscribe button. Trust me, the world's history is way crazier than fiction, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, you legends, and remember, just because someone wears fancy armor doesn't mean they're not an absolute menace. Catch you in the next one.